Global News Bulletin, August 18, 2025. Good evening. This is the Global News Bulletin for Monday, August 18, 2025. Tonight, a possible breakthrough in Gaza, high-stakes diplomacy in Washington, labor unrest in Canada, and economic shifts reshaping Asia and South America. We'll also take you to Africa, Oceania, and even Antarctica, where record-low sea ice is raising new climate alarms. We begin in the Middle East. After nearly a year of devastating conflict, Hamas has announced it will accept a ceasefire plan brokered by Egypt and Qatar. The proposal includes a 60-day pause in fighting, the staged release of hostages, and the exchange of Palestinian prisoners. The announcement comes as Israeli tanks continue to surround Gaza City. Tens of thousands of residents have fled west and south, fearing a renewed ground assault. At the same time, Amnesty International has released testimony accusing Israel of deliberately blocking food supplies, effectively turning hunger into a weapon of war. Across Israel itself, anger is mounting. This weekend, more than 400,000 demonstrators took to the streets, demanding that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu strike a deal to bring the hostages home. Meanwhile, shipping lanes in the Red Sea remain under threat as Yemen's Houthi movement continues attacks on international vessels, sparking fears of a wider regional conflict. Turning now to Europe. The war in Ukraine continues to cast a long shadow over the continent, though today's diplomatic focus is on Washington. More on that later in our North America segment. But closer to Europe's borders, tensions remain high. Sporadic strikes across the Israel-Lebanon border continue, despite months of back-channel diplomacy, and security analysts warn the violence could ignite into a second front if the Gaza war drags on. And in southern Europe, extreme weather remains a pressing challenge, with emergency crews still repairing flood damage from earlier summer storms. Now to Asia, where economics and nature are both driving headlines. In China, property giant Country Garden has secured support from nearly half of its creditors for a $14 billion debt restructuring plan. That lifeline comes as rival developer Evergrande faces a possible delisting from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange later this month, a symbolic blow in China's years-long property crisis. Meanwhile, storm season has battered the region. Typhoon Podul struck Taiwan last week, injuring dozens and leaving at least one person missing before weakening as it tracked toward China. Authorities warn more storms are likely in the weeks ahead, threatening fragile supply chains and already struggling economies. In North America, the weather is also in sharp focus. Hurricane Erin is spinning near the Bahamas, a massive storm churning up dangerous seas. While forecasters do not expect a direct strike on the U.S. mainland, the hurricane's size has prompted evacuations along parts of North Carolina's coast, where strong rip currents and flooding remain possible. Meanwhile, in Canada, the Air Canada strike continues. Flight attendants are refusing to return to work, despite a court ruling declaring the strike illegal. The disruption has grounded hundreds of flights, stranding thousands of travelers nationwide. Union leaders say they are prepared to risk jail time rather than back down. South America tonight brings both economic and political turmoil. In Argentina, inflation rose 1.9% in July. While still far below last year's record levels, the uptick comes as the peso continues to slide. Annual inflation now stands at more than 36%, high by global standards, but still an improvement compared with the past year. For ordinary Argentines, food, fuel, and rent remain volatile, and savings in pesos are eroding quickly. Elsewhere on the continent, Ecuador continues to battle brutal gang violence, with several mass shootings reported this past week in the cities of Guayaquil and Esmeraldas. President Daniel Noboa has expanded military patrols, calling the gangs narco-terrorists. Critics, however, warn that militarization could deepen instability. And in Peru, former President Martín Vizcarra has been placed in pretrial detention on corruption charges, deepening the country's political crisis. To Africa now, where Sudan's devastating civil war grinds on. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has reshuffled the country's military leadership, tightening his grip as the conflict with the Rapid Support Forces drags into its second year. In Darfur, the city of El Fasher is under siege. Civilians are trapped without food or medicine, and aid groups warn famine is imminent. The United Nations has called for a ceasefire, but negotiations remain stalled. Further south, South Africa's unemployment rate has climbed again, now at 33.2%, one of the highest in the world. Youth unemployment is more than 50%. The coalition government faces mounting pressure to deliver stability, while businesses warn that foreign investment is drying up amid policy uncertainty. Now to Oceania. Australia's central bank has cut interest rates for the first time in 2 years, signaling confidence that inflation is under control. The move is expected to provide some relief to homeowners after years of steep borrowing costs. Analysts, however, caution that housing affordability in Sydney and Melbourne remains a major challenge. Across the Tasman Sea, New Zealand's election campaign is heating up. Polls suggest no single party is likely to secure an outright majority, meaning coalition deals could determine the next government. And in Papua New Guinea, a series of earthquakes this month, including a magnitude 5.9 tremor, has rattled communities and renewed concerns about disaster preparedness. And finally to Antarctica, where scientists are reporting record-low winter sea ice levels. Even at a time when the ice should be at its peak, the southern continent is alarmingly bare. Researchers warn the loss of sea ice may accelerate warming worldwide, disrupt ocean currents, and contribute to rising sea levels, with global consequences for coastlines and weather systems. And that's the Global News Bulletin for Monday, August 18th, 2025. From the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, to storms in the Atlantic, to economic shifts across Asia and South America, our world tonight is complex, interconnected, and always in motion. Thank you for joining us. Stay informed, stay safe, and good night.